we well, okay, recording in progress. Because Yvonne has always been a great supporter of ERCST. I have to say this. She always listened to us and always took our call. So please give us our gratitude and the best for the new year. But it's an informal session because what we want to have is really a vision as to what the commission thinks happened during this year. How do you see it? What's the story? Is it a happy ending where we still have a lot of things that are being punted to next year? But in general, again, look at Yvonne, and she asked me, I said, listen, I'm not looking at the play-by-play. I think all these people in this room in principle know what happened, or more or less should know. If not, they should know what happened. But we're looking at a color commentary, if you want to, opinion, views. And then we're in the middle of this discussion, trialogues. We all read what happened in CBAM. Whatever you can tell us, there are a couple of things in there that maybe we don't understand, and maybe you can elaborate on them a little bit. But also, what is happening next year? How do you see the next year profiling? And we have two other people that are joining us to give us also their views. So it's Michela Anol from Agora Energy Verde, who's here based in Brussels. And thank you very much, Michela, for joining us. And I'm not sure because I can't see the screen, but it's Holger Losch, who's the Deputy Director of BDI, the German Business Federation. He's joining us from Berlin. And very grateful, as always, for Holger to join us. Very few of you know that, when I started ERCST, I went to a number of places. And so I went to Paris, I went to Berlin, and I went to Warsaw, and I was looking for not necessarily for money, but I was looking for moral support. And the moral support that we got from BDI and the German government has been quite priceless in a way, because it gave us the confidence that at least people were paying attention and knew what we were doing. With this, I will stop here. Again, it's an informal conversation. It's a group of people that we know. Many of you have been around the ERCST for many years. Again, for those of you who missed the introduction, there are drinks at the end of this, so we hope you stay around for the drinks. But let me start with Luca. But the only thing, Luca, is that I'm told by my friend Antonio that you have to actually speak in the microphone, or the people on the screen will not hear you.
Thank you very much, Andre. I don't know if people can.
I think
this one. This one's better. Huh? Okay.
Okay. All right.
This one. Okay. Very good. So, how did we do? What is your opinion? Everybody who thinks that the Green Deal did great last year should wave the right hand. Okay, my stagiaire, that's great. Then you can stay. Who thinks we did rubbish? Left hand. Okay, who is still frozen by the cold? In between two hands, and then you can tuck your shirt. Good, we've waken up. So I think we did not bad. I think we did not bad, and indeed, we all followed day by day what happened, and there's a trialogue, and then there's co-repair, and then Pascal Canfin tweeted this and that. But let's take a couple of steps back. First of all, what is climate policy about? It's about emissions. So what are emissions doing? Emissions are going down. Emissions are going down 34% compared to 1990. Come and read our climate action progress report of a couple of weeks ago. And then you say, oh, thank you so much, but that's because of COVID. Yes, it's true. We rebounded a little bit after COVID, but we are still below pre-COVID levels. And so if you look at the medium term, if you look at what's going on, the decoupling of economic growth from carbon intensity is happening, is accelerating. And so I think overall, we're not doing too bad. If we see that our primary job, driving down emissions while keeping growth, is happening and is happening well. Yes, there is a little bit of coal. Everybody talks about coal in power generation going up. You look at the use of coal in electricity in 2022, in 2021. Yes, it's higher than the year before, but again, it's still less than it was in 2019, pre-COVID. So again, a mixed story. What it matters is what's going to happen. What is the trend? And we look at the trend, and what we see happening that we didn't expect at the beginning of Great Deal, but it's what gives me the most hope, is that investment is picking up, driven by private finance, but also public finance. I think nobody would ever expect it that the Commission would have put so much money towards renewables, towards the green transition as we actually did. Of course, nobody can call COVID or the war in Ukraine a blessing in disguise. Certainly they were not blessing, and certainly they were a big challenge, but the way we stepped up our climate action and our energy change, the change of our fuels, the change of our energy system as a response to recover and to repower, I think really was the game changer. More than the speech, more than the policy paper, more than whatever. We put our money where our mouth is. And the third thing, of course, as being in charge of legislation, is the regulatory framework is conducive to this change and is happening. And I start from the climate law. Some of you might remember we had this discussion about this climate law that we had to write and negotiate in my unit of what it is about. You put a target, a committee, a report, and that's it. And the way we made sense of the climate law was to give certainty about the regulatory environment to investors. Yes, it's great to show up in Glasgow and say we have a long-term strategy. It's great to tell Greta we put it into legislation because we mean it. But what really the climate law does by saying by law 2050 climate neutral is to tell all investors, spend your money wisely. Don't waste them into stranded assets. This is the regulatory direction of Europe for the next 30 years. You figure it out what it means for your business and for you. But so I think by really giving this strong direction and letting people understand what is going to be viable and what not, we really framed the regulatory environment that then we came to give more detail in the Fit for 55. And now we come closer to the play-by-play. We are doing better than we thought. Of course, we always said we're going to close before the end of the year. When Diederik started to say, oh yeah, we're going to close before sharp, everyone said, come on, trilogues in 2 months, trilogues in 3 months. Yeah, let's say it. Let's put it in the speaking points, and then it's up to France if he wants to say it or not. But it did happen. You know, it's having done a lot of trade negotiations, you know that the external constraint, the external deadline is always useful to focus the mind. And at the same time, going back to climate law again, sorry, we've agreed the framework. We agreed it has to adapt to 55. We discussed at length the climate target plan and impact assessments and how the different pieces fit together. So yes, different ministers, different MEPs can have different opinions, but the big decision is already taken. You know, there are not so many things you can do with the ETS. If you want to change it from -40 to -55, you have to increase it by a range of these points. But okay, you can say one more, one less. But more or less what we needed to do was clear. And that also helped, I think, this framework plus the pressure of Glasgow plus the recovery power interest in getting these pieces of legislation agreed really helped to deliver. We delivered the car CO2 standards. Yeah, already this went through COREPER and Parliament already, the committee. Now we're waiting for probably January, the plenary, or February, depends on the translation. LULUCF, ESR. We are going to COREPER tomorrow, I think. And then again to committee, I think in January, I'm not sure. And then again, translations and all, but okay, the lawyer linguists are already working on these 2 files. Maritime and aviation, well, maritime, we closed it 2 or 3 times, depending on how many tweets I look. But so we say, oh, we close maritime again. But aviation is a self-standing file, both the decision about what to notify to CORSIA, okay, that's easy, we notify zero, everybody do it, but we adopted the decision. But more importantly, also the division, yeah, between the ETS and implementation of CORSIA, the clean cut. So this was a self-standing file, and we closed it. Last night, we, colleagues in tax, closed CBAM. Yeah, I'm sure we have many questions about what does it mean for indirect emissions, which precursor are actually precursors, even though they say we are not precursors. Because the press releases, I think they're a bit shy on the details of these things. Yeah. There are some things upstream, some things downstream, and perhaps hydrogen, no? With a bit of indirect. That's as precise as I'm going to be.
And similar levels of that.
And similar level of efforts, but the key thing of CBAM, there are 2 key things of CBAM. Yes, well, as an ETS guy, what I care about is the phase in, phase out, the free allocation. which is left for our jumbo trialogue on Friday. Exports is half addressed here, but they expect us again to try to work a bit more on help or take into account that, how to put it, free allocation and border measures behave differently with regard to export-oriented sectors or companies. But also what I think I would like to say, I don't have to say, but I would like to say is to congratulate you and colleagues in this house for the excellent work you've done over the past 2 years. I think I've lost track. If we count, it's probably what, 50 events? More or less, but you certainly were part of this discussion. A lot of your ideas were echoing yesterday in the trialogue, maybe not attributed, but you helped us frame the picture and have an intelligent discussion about an issue that was highly ideological, where everybody came with, some preconceived ideas, and the work that you did in clarifying and explore and say what is what with honesty was deeply appreciated. And you're part of this success.
I hope that my funders listen to you.
It was money well spent. So what's left to do for us? We start on Friday at 11. We have ETS1, included a link to CBAM. ETS1 is the level of ambition between 61 and 63. The relation to CBAM is the free allocation, phase in, phase out, the export side. We have ETS2, scope, fuels, sectors, time, level of prices, relation with the Social Climate Fund, size of the Social Climate Fund. And this is a little bit what expects us for the weekend. I've seen that announcements are booked for Sunday at 10 o'clock, so don't waste your time Saturday. Go to sleep on Saturday night. Announcements, if there are any, will be on Sunday at 10 o'clock. But that would really be at least the last file of the Klima family. Outside the Klima family, of course, energy efficiency, renewables, energy performance of buildings, all this stuff is a little bit more behind. I think they closed one of the refuel files of MOVE, but yesterday they couldn't close aviation. On the energy side, to be fair, I think the energy crisis took a little bit over, and you see all these 1 to 2 proposals, which now people call Red 5, Red 6, Red 47. We keep picking up what's easy and putting it into new proposals, which get adopted. Let's see if they will get finally adopted tomorrow. But so there is progress there, there's money there, and I think we are doing stuff on renewables and energy efficiency, even though we have not closed the Energy Efficiency Directive and the Renewable Energy Directive. One look at international, Sharm was a little bit of a disappointment. Yes, we said we're available to look at a fund, but we were expecting Sharm to deliver a little bit more mitigation ambition from the big polluters, as we had discussed in Glasgow. It did not happen. It's not the end of the world. We had an internal seminar the other day where to say, okay, 1.5 is more difficult, but it is still possible. And what is on the table, Laura Cozzi was telling us maybe the analysis that looks at 1.7. So, okay, it's not completely out of reach. We need to step up our ambition, as we did. You all know too well that with EuroCF at 310 megatons, we're a little bit beyond 55, around 57, at least 57. It depends a bit how you calculate it, but we are delivering extra on the ambition that we promised, and we certainly call on everybody else to do the same. Finally, next year, what are we going to do? Again, my head as agenda planning guy, a lot of implementing and delegated acts. All the nitty-gritty of all this stuff, on CBAM, on ETS, on ESR, we will have to go to committees and parliaments to draft this and get it online before the new legislation applies. Second, very important, remember the climate law. We said that in the autumn, we do a first report on progress towards climate neutrality, together with the Energy Union progress reports on progress towards 2030. So we have the double one, progress towards 2030 and 2050, with possible recommendations, with a few weeks before or after the NECP recommendations. So there's a whole governance moment next year of where are we now that we completed this legislation, where are we with the emissions, where are we with our long-term strategies, with the member states' long-term strategies. And we rebound on that into the spring of 2024 with a proposal for the 2040 target and the climate budget. And again, 2040 target. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have to fully implement what we have. But I think it's important to start a discussion. I'm very excited about the climate budget as a new regulatory tool. Because we see a little bit the discussions we've had. We talk level of ambition, but doing a new package with the climate budget is going to be a whole level of complexity that we would have to deal with. So stay tuned. A lot of boring technical stuff, but also a lot of excitement coming up through the implementation and the design of the new policy. Thank you, Andrea.
Well, thanks, Luca, taking us on a tour. I think there are probably a lot of people in this room that will have comments and probably quite the inevitable questions on some of the things that you mentioned, probably explicitly on one topic that you will know better than many others. But let me, before we turn to the audience and question that we may have ourselves, Michela, why don't you give us your take of what you think happened this year, and how do you see the same way the commission sees it? Were you up with one hand, two hands? Which camp are you in? The only thing I ask you is to speak in the mic because of Holger, otherwise you won't hear us.
Yeah. Do you think it's okay like this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks so much for inviting me to your circle of many events, because somehow I'm not strictly speaking in your core climate, circle. And it's actually super interesting to put the things together for today, because you asked what I was voting. I had two hands up, but I think I'm much more negative. But I already feel a bit inspired just hearing you talk, because it's true that on what comes to climate policy framework, I think it's really been an amazing year. And if you just think about when, for the first time, the CBAM idea or having an ETS2, nobody even thought it would even fly. And we are not there, for example, on the ETS2, but neither the council nor the parliament opposed it. And that's somehow actually amazing. I mean, we have now a price signal already for different reasons, but I mean, you talked about also the funding as also an issue. And yeah, I mean, it is amazing. And also for the overall Fit for 55, if you think all the things that happened this year, we are probably still on track. Renewables is very advanced, and that's amazing because they even added new stuff, as you said. But on the energy policy side, this was a very destabilizing year. I mean, the 24th of February really on the energy Green Deal side of the ship, it was rocked. And I would even say that the jury is still open if we can keep the overall direction of the Green Deal. We have the climate law, but on the energy side, I think there's many things interacting together, and I'll just pick a few. I mean, first of all, on the energy side, since we were constantly in emergency mode, let's not forget that a lot of the things were basically decided in 2 weeks in between two extraordinary energy council. I don't know how many there were this year, 10, we never had that. I also still remember the time in ENA when we were dreaming of having the heads of states discuss energy issues, which never happened. And now it's like every time. But so, I mean, if you decide everything based on Article 122 emergency notification and you don't really have a discussion, nothing is impact assessed. At some point, I think on the energy side next year, we should also take stock exactly what has happened, because nobody can overlook it anymore. We've spent now quite a few months on the power cap, the price cap discussion, which I think it's today, right? The council, I should know this, will conclude by having it. And you saw really how difficult it is and how disturbing it is. We have the next topic already lined up, which has the, how should I say, utility renewables community already in high alert, which is that after, we will look into power market design as a response, because they were indirectly affected, as you all know, by the gas unit setting the price, and then the super high power market prices. And for me, this is just one illustration of the emergency mode in which we are. And on the energy side, I think there's a high risk that short-term measures that politicians want have long-term damage, like a price cap, as implemented in Iberia, meant more gas was consumed, which is exactly what you don't need. On power market design, frankly speaking, and the Commission has this, some parts of the Commission, namely the TN, have this line that we revised our market design in the clean energy package, where, the theme was might make the market fit for the new world. Now we are coming and looking into it, but actually we are in a fossil heating crisis. How did we end up looking into power market design, which anyhow was already reformed in a clean energy package? Then again, we are not revising yet the gas package. That's one of the energy initiatives you didn't refer to, which is also coming up for next year. So the Commission presented its gas and hydrogen decarbonization package in December last year, exactly a year ago. And that was 2 months before the war. And this package still very much was driven by this gas as a bridge fuel general idea, right? Only that basically it was clear we will have to get clean gas in, namely renewables gases and hydrogen. Only that basically I think we haven't fully finished thinking the consequences of the Ukraine war on the gas can no longer be a bridge fuel and what does it mean story. And on the gas and hydrogen, this year was marked, it was marked by also a lot of short-term thinking, like, can we allow ourselves to still have strict standards, say, for example, green hydrogen, and ended up diluting the standards rather than fine-tuning our narrative and concluding that gas, the uses have to be much more prioritized. So for me, that is unfinished business of this year. But obviously you can't do everything. I mean, there's really absolutely no blame on the Commission. They were in draft a paper for the Council on power market design in 2 weeks mode. So, but I think I would hope that the power market design debate and the gas debate come a bit more together next year. And then also on the financing side, I would be less optimistic than you are, because also this year basically meant a reorientation of a lot of money towards fossil. We had all our good intentions. For example, the repower was only going for clean energy production with very limited, exemptions for if your country phasing out of coal, you can still, but basically not. But Yvonne is at the moment in the trilogue. This looks very different now. We are reorientating a lot of money towards fossil again, starting with repower. I recently read a study about plans in Germany, which is in a way most concerned by this war and then the energy implications of it. That's basically what they have lined up in terms of floating and standing on ground LNG is 50% over capacity compared to before war, while we should phase down. So there's a lot of stranded asset risk, I think, which deserves a closer look. You will also know the famous figure of Bruegel, of our colleagues from the Bruegel think tank, that have now said we are at the moment at 700 billion spent or planned to be spent on containing energy prices. 700 billion. Most, not all, but most is fossil. Right? If you think about it, it's in a way, it's fossil subsidies. And this basically means this is as big as our recovery plan money, which at the time was like, wow, how did we end up doing this, you know? And we have spent in 1 year as much, and we have spent it to a large extent on fossil. And then at some point we'll all wake up and realize there's not an endless amount of money, right? And then there was the commission communication on the, on the fiscal rules, where, at some point things like golden rule for climate investments was discussed. Commission didn't like it, but the commission proposal will not allow a country like Italy, in a tight budgetary space to do all the climate investments that are needed. It was already in our Agora research, we already identified a gap before the war. And now with this massive amount of money that was deviated, it doesn't look any better. So I think for me, that's unfinished business also for next year. And for the money, and maybe there I stop already because we're only discussing for 1 hour, which is ambitious for wrapping up on Green Deal in this year. Like again, a bit wrapping up all the points I made. For example, at the moment there's a lot of discussion. Oh, the US, now they came with the Inflation Reduction Act, and now, oh my God, this is the end. Which I don't think so, because I think it's too simple. If you compare and look in the details, that also like you will have to do delegated acts on CBAM, the US authorities will now have to have a delegated act defining what additionality means for them in renewables as well. So in the end, they will have a similar thing. And also, I think we have a lot of money. It's just a different way of doing it. They announce it first. But just to, on one point where I think what is important to keep in mind, as I said already, money is scarce. There is the risk of stranded assets. And we use the term low carbon also in the recovery, in the trialogue at the moment. But there's a lot of low carbon everywhere in the state aid guidelines, in repower, and nobody has ever defined this term. Nobody has ever defined this term. We spent money based on it. So homework for next year, make that clear. So I stop there.
Very well, thank you, Michaela. Holger, I can't see you except if I turn like this and look up. But I know you're there. So
I'm here.
From the BDI view, I know you guys have done some very serious work. I remember a couple of studies you did a couple of years ago. I think you're renewing that. What is your take as to this year? I mean, this is a very industrial economy, and there are obvious discussions about what this means for industrial Europe. So, Holger?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Andre. Thank you, everybody, for joining these sessions. And I'm very glad to give you just a few thoughts about how industry is seeing the current situation, especially with the focus on the Fit for 55 and all of this. Well, first of all, we just had a meeting thinking about what happened this year and what we would like to do next year. And I mean, the basic feeling was that we started with high spirits in monitoring transformation and bringing transformation forward. And what we ended with was a constant mode of crisis management. So this basically was our year. What I would say in the end, probably you may not say things, years are lost, but I think this was not a very good year for managing the transformation we all would like to see. So we have, of course, a lot of need for emergency measures to keep companies and private people alive in the view of all of those extraordinary energy price hikes. All of this happening after 2.5 years of a very unprecedented different crisis of COVID. So this is what really has been making things a bit more difficult this year. So if I would say one thing, perhaps what what taught us this year is that perhaps we relied a little bit too much on a lot of macroeconomic scenario studies, which basically said that in 2050, in general, everything would have gone fine. So we probably missed out on the possibility to build in disruptions like the Ukraine war, what happened, to build this into our scenarios. And my first take of this year would be that we need to look a lot more or a lot deeper into possible disruptions and how we can make our energy system, our business market systems more resilient. So this is my first takeaway. Of course, everything we see now is trying to cope with all of this consequences from this disruption. We see emergency measures. We see, as already said, I would not like to comment now on the ongoing discussions. I heard that the Energy Council is already going longer than expected. So all of this talk about, do we need a gas price cap? Do we need a gas price break? As you probably know, BDI was very intensively part of the German discussion about a gas price break. But basically the target was all the same, to take away this panic and this fear from people and businesses that they might be overwhelmed by energy prices without a chance to really properly keep up with their business or with their lives. And therefore we need some sort of solutions there. But this is taking a lot of the energy we all would have needed for other stuff, for other developments. Well, on the Green Deal, I would say the interesting thing is, first of all, looking at what happened in the United States. So after many years of blaming the United States for not complying with our ideas of climate protection, so all of a sudden they came up with a large package. And since then, and as you probably know, I'm quite involved in Business Europe things as chairman of the Industrial Affairs Committee there. And if you follow the discussions in Brussels, you really see, I would say, a very deep concern about, is our system of incentivizing and bringing this transformation into life, is this the right thing? I would not say that the American thing is the absolutely right thing, and I would not say that the European thing is absolutely wrong, but I think this discussion is very helpful. So therefore, my next takeaway is we really should look at how we manage to incentivize all of this transformation. I mean, in Europe, so it's very often it's regulatory, and we have the CO2 pricing, the ETS, and it's very much looking at very concrete targets and then counting back. The Americans are doing a lot with subsidies now, tax credits, and from my understanding, and that's another takeaway, we really should look very intensively at what the Americans have been trying to set up there, not copy it, but take some learnings to perhaps look at our own system. And I've read, of course, the speech of von der Leyen, and I think Vestager was today in the German Handelsblatt. So the discussion is going on, and I think we should use this discussion to come up with a better and more resilient system to get things going. I will give you an example. So we just recently had discussions with those companies building windmills, offshore windmills, and so on, onshore windmills. And then one of our politicians said, I can't believe we have all of these great targets of growth of onshore and offshore wind, and now you're telling me that you are in an economically terrible, dangerous situation. So why is it like this? I think if those questions arise, we should think about what we should perhaps change, make our procedures, our permitting procedures, our planning procedures, our regulatory frames, perhaps a bit easier and a bit better fit for purpose. And the purpose is, of course, to reach our targets and become the first climate neutral continent on the globe. Another thing I would say in this context is I'm quite, yeah, how would I say? So I've been investing a lot of time in talking to other countries about hydrogen economy, and not only because we need this green hydrogen to become a climate neutral continent, wherever it comes from. But on the other hand, it's a matter of competitiveness. I would like European companies to be on the front runners in providing the technology, the electrolyzers and all of this. And there, I would say as well, I see a lot of very complicated regulatory frames and RED, for example, and so on. And my fear is that we tell everybody to go for hydrogen, and others just do it, and perhaps do it a bit easier, and take away the profits and take away the market chances we would like to have for our European industry in the transformation. Well, coming to the different issues, I mean, the ETS.
Whoops. Whoops. Is this us or is it him? But our network seems to be okay. You didn't pay the bill. Well, sorry this has happened. I tell you what, we've been doing this videos things for many for what, 3 years now, something like that, 2.5, 3 years almost.
I'm back. Yes,
you're back.
I'll be back. So that's a very famous quote from movie history.
I can't see you as Schwarzenegger, but go ahead.
Okay. So ETS2, very important for us. I'm not sure, but perhaps the discussion will show if without an ETS, how we could reach the effort sharing targets properly. CBAM, obviously a night session tonight. I haven't seen any text there, but as we always said, I mean, this system has not been tested. It's looking at WTO. It's not without risks, and of course we would like to have a very thorough trial phase, and of course perhaps a road back if it doesn't work. So this is something we always emphasize, that we have to be very careful on this, and as we all see, the geopolitical landscape is changing a lot. So, well, what would I wish for? I think if we want to decarbonize industrialized continent, we should be very careful that we keep some industry to be decarbonized, and therefore we need, of course, a lot of ingenuity now to keep industry working and sound, not only because of the energy prices here, but also as we see what the Americans are now, of course, proposing as a opportunity to go some other places for industries. I'm definitely sure that we will not see a mass exodus of industry companies to the United States. That's not going to happen. But the question is, where is the next and the interesting future investment going, especially if you are in the energy intensive businesses. So this is something where we really have to take care. A no-brainer, our systems in planning, permitting, and everything else, bureaucracy, this is all just too slow. This is not fit for purpose. And I think governments and business as well really have to speed up there. So if we really want to reach those targets, we have to become much faster. And I mean, not only governments, I mean business as well. But of course, sometimes the limits for business is in speeding up are set by governments and by regulatory. So the last thing, I see that in these changing geopolitical times, it is really time to think about new forms of partnerships. I mean, the old, very linear partnerships in commodities and so on, I could imagine that there will be new forms of partnerships. And we see a lot like the JET piece or the Just Energy Transition Partnerships or other things. So what we've been talking to with the Australians about a hydrogen partnership very quickly changed into talking about a much broader sort of technology and raw materials partnership. This is, if we look at China, United States, Europe, Russia, and the rest of the world, I think that's absolutely important that Europe, the West, if you may say like this, is inventing new forms to make partners, to make perhaps not friends, but partners which are sharing a considerable part of the values we are sharing. And there is a lot of necessity to come to results here. And again, it's not only for the governments, it's for us in business as well. How do we find partners for transformational industry projects, and how do we change the ways in which we make partners and friends worldwide? So, well, and the last thing I, of course, and everybody is wishing for is this terrible war to end. But this is not our decision at this point. This would anyways help a lot if it would end. So perhaps a little bit too long, but those were a few thoughts from our perspective.
Thank you, Holger. Now, I have some thoughts of my own, but I think chairs are not in the business of being leading with all kind of discussion unless there's a dead time and that you have to fill in. Even though I have to say that I do have quite a few questions, but first the drinks. But let me open it to you, and if you wanna start very quickly. But I would like, if you have some color commentary thoughts about this, but let's try and keep it very short. We want to give a lot of people the opportunity to express themselves. And if there's a question, let's try and make it short. So the gentleman at the back there, Antonio. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this excellent panel. Just a small, just a short commentary that I'd like, if you have time to hear a commentary on. The comment is.
You want to introduce yourself first, maybe?
Yeah,
for a second?
I'm sorry, Andrei Deli, Estonia. I'm independent consultant, and I also participate in Repower EU technical assistance. So the commentary on the Green Deal and everything we have discussed is the following. It seems that the European Union, and particularly the European authorities, let's say like these institutions, are not succeeding in the public communication about the Repower EU or about the Green Deal. And there are two things which seem to be problematic. First is that communication messages do not imply the behavioral change. For example, now in the energy crisis, there are plenty of opportunities to employ all these energy efficient appliances, and they are not by people because there is a lack of awareness. And second is that there are too many
unachievable expectations that are declared, and probably it's better to go the other way around to make them less ambitious but realistic, because everything which might be failed going to be turned against the European Union in terms of the information work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And anyone else? I'd like to go around the room if there's any other comments. I mean, I can't believe you guys came only for the drinks. Look, let me say, since since there's quiet in the room, look, let me say this, but for everybody, not only only for you. We had a session today with a bunch of friends that I mean, people that we kind of respect and we think that's relatively smart, let's say. And one thing that kind of said, what is the theme or a document that we're preparing? What is the theme? Everybody has to have a theme, right? So what is the theme? And the theme was kind of, well, last year was the year of ambition and high prices and everybody was pushing. This year, people seem to be a lot more concerned about the social and economic implication. And we see that into this preoccupation with what do you call it, the speculation and the CBAM and all this thing. Is that your sense? I mean, there's a change in mood. On the other hand, so do you recognize the statement? Is this something that makes sense, or is this something that somebody is kind of making a statement because it sounds like a terrific statement to make? These things happen. When you're with friends. But anyone else that would like to react? Go ahead, please. There's Antonio, if you don't mind.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kimmo Järvinen. I work for the Finnish technology industries. And of course, all of these happenings, all of the things that are happening around us are significant. They are of utmost importance when we look at our future, and we have to get them right. I look at this year and I look at the last year, and what I see is that most of the European energy-intensive industries are losing ground. Chemical industry, pulp and paper, maybe not so much, but metal industry, all of those are losing ground against the competitors outside EU and within the EU. The first time ever, the chemical imports were bigger than the exports. So the chemical industry is really suffering. Aluminium, you name it, all of those things. So honestly, I cannot say that we have succeeded if we are able to bring home the ETS and CBAM this year. To me, it's not a success. Okay, I mean, bureaucratically and in terms of the work that has been done on this one, yes, it is a success in that sense. And I'm amazed how fast this has been able to do. We have been able to pull it together, but the success will be measured later on. Later on will be measured whether our industries are really capable of investing in the green transition, which they want, by the way. All of the industries want to do it. We have our roadmaps and so forth. We would like to do that. But I feel, and I strongly also ask you to comment on the fact that why in the earth do we as EU develop our regulatory environment in silos, so that when on the other hand we say that we want to lead in environmental policies and so forth, on the other hand we have DigiTrade who says that no, we cannot think of exports rebate because it's WTO not compatible. When the US put S232, and on Friday there was a verdict saying that it's not WTO compatible. What did the US do? And what they do? They said, fuck off. We don't care. You don't come and mess around with the US internal things. So I think we are doing something wrong in EU in the sense that we are slow and we follow rules that are not anymore existing. They are not existing anymore in this world. Look at China. Whenever China was WTO compatible, now the US is not WTO. So here I think that the challenge is not in ETS, CBAM. Sorry, I got excited.
No, it's very good to get excited, especially before the drinks. But look, I don't want to make this bilateral with that. There's also a temptation, but we invited Luca not to. We invited people for a conversation among all of us. I mean, we all live in this place, presumably, and we want to say So the hand at the back, and I can't see the picture. So.
Hi, this is Romain Logier from WWF European Policy Office. I thought I should take the floor just to congratulate the Commission first for the package that will soon be over. I think you probably need a little bit of a cheering and support for all these efforts. Last year, we had emissions which rose by 5%. And yeah, that's this climate package that has a chance to revert the course and to finally start reducing emissions instead of increasing them. And that's probably one of the key focus we should have here. It's also going to be something that's probably going to improve competitiveness of our economies, and that is the CBAM. For the first time, we're going to have, imports which will have to pay a carbon price, which is a fantastic opportunity for ending free allocation in the ETS and for making our industries actually competitive. So I think that's also a message that deserves to be heard. And yeah, if I had a chance, I would also quiz Mr. De Cali about the fossil fuel subsidies that we have seen as a reaction to the crisis. And this is also something that probably would have to be addressed, maybe not this year, but in the coming years. So instead of thinking about how we could slow down to, ease the pain on the industry, just, how can we improve and increase on climate efforts, which should be the focus.
Thanks for that. Antonio, the gentleman here in the front.
Thank you. Martin Keim from the Heinrich Böll Foundation. Thank you very much for the presentations. I would just have one question to the Commission, to Luca De Cali, regarding the CBAM, because as probably many of us here haven't read the details on the actual agreement, but I saw that hydrogen is actually covered, and I would just be interested in if you could say a few more words on this aspect of CBAM. Thank you.
Inevitable. I think that they were going around, but somebody had to get the gorilla on there. Anybody else? Well, I think that it is interesting. I will make one private comment, but I'm not ready to make it yet. But
in the drinks, you will make it maybe.
I will make it with the drink, but it's a very close friend of mine, so I'm not going to say it. So I'll start with Jimmy Kella, because I'm going to look at it's kind of, it's no, you go first.
Okay. I'll take something like 3 or 4 minutes and try to cover 3 points or something. On the first point on the communication, I would totally agree. I think what we've observed over the last year was, and that's also the point I tried to make at the beginning, we are still partly in denial that there will be a going back to how it was before with the gas, and that will not happen. And if you remember, the first repower, probably leaks of the Commission, did not talk at all about the demand side. It was in March. They only talked about finding new sources, and then we've come a long way. And then yesterday, the IEA published a document that basically said, you thought this winter was tough, the next one's going to be tough, because this year we still filled with Russian gas, but next year we'll have to do without this. So I guess, and for the communication, I meant this, we really structurally need to reduce what's at the beginning missing, and it's slowly coming. Then on the Finnish gentleman, I would also say there is no going back to how it was before. We cannot endlessly fund forever. So I think we need to ask some difficult questions also around, I would say, I have to say it, in this climate circle, free allowances. I just read that we spent 100 billion in the last decade on this. It's too simplistic to just say, look at the US now. We have a different approach, but there are a lot of things we can do here. And yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, you're trying to tell me something. Okay, good. Luca?
Okay, but I take it a little bit going around. Can I start maybe from you, Andre? Is that balance between ambition and protection? Yeah, whatever protection is. I didn't feel the shift, because from the very beginning, maybe because my boss is socialist, so he always put the accent on this. But for us, it's part of the same package. You know, the social aspects, needs to be a just transition, fair transition. Either it's fair or it will not happen. So for us, this has always been front and center of what we're trying to do. And then I bounce on this with Roman, thank you for the support, but also the gentleman for industry and BDI. Again, we don't want to cut emissions by closing industry. The success is, yes, I mentioned emissions, I look at emissions. Maybe I should have mentioned my second key success factor is employment. Yeah, so we want to drive down emission while keeping the high level of good quality jobs in the economy. And of course, industry has to change. Everybody has to change, and change is painful because in our market economy, thank God, change happens through competition, through pain. You train, no pain, no gain. No, of course, you didn't train with me, but you have to be there on being tired and pushing your body so that you come back stronger next time. And I know all industries. I used to deal with SMEs in a previous life, and we are at the cutting edge. And so then the question becomes, can we manage this transition in a way that is socially fair, that keeps good levels of employment while transforming our economy? There, I quote again Franz Timmermans. He says it once a day. It's bloody difficult. It's bloody difficult, but we are doing it and it's happening. And yes, there are hiccups, and yes, there are contradictions. And yes, we have to resist the temptation of taking the easy way out, because there are easy way out. The Americans are taking the easy way out. And I really appreciate the gentleman from BDI is not here. He says, we need a reflection on, are our incentives right? Export support. Look, we went back last night and we say, let's give extra support to exporting companies. It's the easy way out, because 5 minutes later, you get CVDs from the Americans as you're back to square one, except we lost some money. So again, what is the smart solution? The smart solution is accompanying into making a change which keeps employment and drives competitiveness and is greener. It's difficult, yeah. But so I think fundamentally the direction is right. Merging competitiveness with green transformation, and companies, private households into this transition the best way we can. It's not easy, but it takes time. So that's a little bit what I wanted to say.
Well, I don't see anybody. I think they're all rushing for the drinks. Look, Luca and Michela and Holger, who is probably, it's like my knee. If you don't pay your bills, in the end somebody cuts your internet. I want to thank you. I know that it's the end of the year where everybody's tired. It's the end, there's still a week where everybody is super busy and kind of involved into 100 million things, closing files, closing deals, closing trialogues. We all close what we can. And again, wishing you well for all on behalf of all of us and for all of us, because we are all somehow into this together. We always say, and we make no bone about it, is that we want at the end of this a prosperous Europe. Prosperous Europe is got to be an industrial Europe. We know that, and we know that this is important for you and for all of us. Our best to Yvonne, and many thanks, and we miss her, but I'm sure she will see her on another occasion. And I'd like to invite you all outside and have a drink. And if you wanna pester Luca with a few questions regarding CBAM, be my guest. Thank you very much.